What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin price chart as we have entered into that window of time of the longest non-expansionary period for Bitcoin and crypto in history. While we're still within that window of time of how long it has taken, technically speaking, the longest ever was about 3 or 4 days ago. So we have crossed into the longest ever. However, scooting back, we have seen some timing delays happening in here slightly. We'll see if that thing still remains true. This thing has certainly been bizarre from the beginning of it with how well the timing of all the moves of Bitcoin have been over the course of the last 3 years. It's of course been a fascinating time that we've been in right now because of how many things have been different. And I talked about this in yesterday's live stream. The most dangerous words a retail investor can actually say are, "This time is different." Typically, when people say this time is different, it's like at the peak of 2021. Don't you understand? Elon Musk, Tesla has added Bitcoin to their balance sheet. Don't you understand? Companies are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. This time is different. Or you go to the bottom and you say, hey, this time is different. FTX collapsed. We can't recover from this. We have to go lower. Or this time is different. We have ETFs now. The price has to keep soaring to the upside. So when we talk about things in the context of this time is different, we're not sitting here talking about narratives. We're talking about the actual charts that are happening here on the screen and how many things have actually been different. There's a lot of things that are technically really almost the same. There may be slight differences on structures and what a range actually ends up looking like. But for the most part, things have been pretty much the same. And in order for it to still remain the same, of course, we would want to actually see expansion come into the market pretty soon. One of those things that has been different has really just been the fact that we are on top of the 50-week moving average right now. There has never been a time where we are on top of the 50-week moving average and we aren't already in distribution or in a bear market for Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. We've gone through extreme detail about this whole moment in here that while it sets the new high, like we're talking about, the market was already in a bear at that time, which was why we didn't see an alt season or altcoins continue on after Bitcoin set its high. We set a new high in Bitcoin while already in a bear. I'm not going to spend a lot of time elaborating on that. We spent years talking about this at this point, and that's also why when we were picking out the bottoms down in here, we weren't looking for 12K. We weren't using a timetable of thinking there was a whole lot more time left on this after FTX for us to keep going down. Our timetable showed us we were much further along than that at that time. So longtime viewers of the channel, you totally understand that. That's why we had the altcoin market soar into this 702 retracement in here. That's why things like Doge topped back here, and we're already in a bear market in here. Litecoin, XRP, all back in here. 90% of the market topped back in here. And the reason I bring that up is because obviously Bitcoin sets a new high here after hitting the 50-week moving average. But the vast majority of the market was already in a bear, and it was actually doing bear market structures happening in here for Bitcoin at that time, even though that new high took place. And then it proceeds to go on and do its final leg. But what we know about Bitcoin throughout all of its history is that hovering above the 50-week moving average is what happens once it breaks into a new all-time high. By the time it hits that 50-week moving average, it's already in a bear market. Every time it goes into a new high, 50-week moving average being held, by the time it hits it, it's in a bear market. Story's the same. Get through it, stay far away. By the time you come and touch it, you're already in a bear market. So what's different? We just barely get into the new high over here and we're already back at the 50-week moving average. That has never happened before in Bitcoin's life cycle. If we move out to bigger time frames in here with weekly candles and then start looking at indicators in here, we start seeing interesting things happening down in here as well. We can look at what bull market looks like, what bull market strength looks like in here, or bull market strength or bull market strength. What we see happening over here for Bitcoin is that. So what did it look like every time Bitcoin got back to its 50-week moving average throughout history? And what did these indicators look like? We can see that the relative strength makes its way down in here to the mid to low 40s back in 2014, over here in 2018, over here in 2021, and where we are right now. This is quite bizarre for Bitcoin's price behavior, right? Barely getting back to the all-time high and then already touching the 50-week moving average, already relative strength falling back to the same levels it has fallen to every time it's gotten to the 50-week moving average. We did have one time where we touched the 50-week moving average prior to Bitcoin setting a new all-time high back here in 2019. And where was the relative strength at that time? Right there. And so my job here is not to scare the daylights out of you, but I'm going to show you the data. We are still not tremendously off time for this to happen. And this to happen right here, just below the all-time high, is certainly different. Does that mean it will behave differently? Will the 50-week moving average be used as a launch pad rather than what it's done the last 4 times? We'll all find out together. Things that we also know are different about that with hitting that 50-week moving average that are different from this one, and this one is that Bitcoin has not gone into expansion. So all of these periods are post-expansion periods where the whole crypto market runs, everything is gravy, chaos erupts everywhere, and we've had true expansion happening. Then we pull back to the 50-week moving average, and then things start falling apart for a longer bear market. There wasn't an expansion prior to this. If I were to reference any of these points on here, I actually wouldn't even use 1, 2, or 3 because there weren't expansionary periods that happened in Bitcoin. That's a personal opinion. If I were to say there's a chance of it crashing and crumbling, I would much more reference this one because of all the talk that we've had over the years about a retrace happening. And then the move that ends up happening for Bitcoin is the same sized move of what the retrace looked like back in 2019. And then even has these little phases happening in here and then just a bunch of waddling up there before eventually things came back down. I would reference that simply because this is a non-expansionary period. This is a retrace. And like we know with the altcoin market, it also did a 702 Fibonacci retracement. However, another thing that would make that different to say, hey, we're retracing way over here is just the amount of time that has elapsed. That would be very bizarre at this point now for it to just keep going, because it would insinuate there is no cycle this year for Bitcoin. There's probably years ahead of more grueling, more grinding, and that's just not in the cards. And my goal is not to scare you or to say, or to tell you that that's the probable outcome. What we do on this channel is we look at charts. All technical analysis is trying to draw conclusions based on historical behavior. That is what technical analysis is. Anytime we're using indicators, or if we're looking at relative strength, you're looking at stochastic RSI, you're looking at moving averages, you're looking at fractals, you're looking at anything. It is all based on past data and speculating on how the market is going to react with these particular behaviors happening on a chart and happening with strength indicators. That is what technical analysis is, trying to predict the future based on historical behavior. If you were to try to predict the future based on historical behavior of touching the 50-week moving average, and that was the only thing you were going to predict, is what happens next after you touch the 50-week moving average. All 4 times in the past, it led to a big crash. Then you try to narrow it down and say, okay, which one does it more resemble? Well, we know this is all expansion. We know this is all expansion. We know this is all expansion as we just take out the highs and go on big bull runs in here. These are all expansions happening. This isn't an expansion. So we can't reference to those points with identical situations and say, hey, look, we ran up 5 times above the all-time high, or 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, whatever. We saw the crypto market go surging off into all-time highs. Altcoins went nuts into the all-time highs. The whole market rampaged. The market caps went nuts. Now we're hitting the 50-week moving average. We've done this exact same thing 3 times in the past. Well, here's what happens. That's not what happened, right? Altcoins went back to retracement levels. Bitcoin touches its all-time high, and we didn't see stocks expand. So the context of where we're at on top of the 50-week moving average is not identical to those 3 time periods, because this is not a post-expansionary period like those 3 were. So then you say, well, what context is it similar to? I guess it's kind of similar to this. We saw the altcoin market go back into a retrace just like this, hits its 702 retracement. The percentage sized moved of this was the same as this, and then now we're back to it. But is it a perfect match and an identical behavior of what's happening in there? No, it's not, because Bitcoin set a new all-time high. And by the time Bitcoin had gotten back to its 50-week moving average, it had fallen 50% already. Big retrace, goes back 50% down, hits the 50-week moving average, boom. And we know this is part of the super cycle range, and that this ABC behavior in here is actually exactly what you do in a wave 4 consolidation right there before you then go on. And so when we look at this and we say this time is different, it's just from the context and the technical charts that we're looking at in here. This is the 5th time that we've come back to hit the 50-week moving average here in 2024, 2021, 2019, 2018, and 2014. And none of the contexts were the same. In none of these circumstances did we set a new all-time high and then not go into an expansion. It is different. The thing that would be the same would be the relative strength index and how it is pulled back to the same level every single time that we do get back to the 50-week moving average. And that in bull runs, you don't. Like back here in 2017 and here in 2020 and 2021. Strength-wise, it is acting just like it does every single time when we come back to the 50-week moving average. But contextually, it's different. It's a non-expansionary period and Bitcoin set a new all-time high. But what makes it so fascinating about it occurring as well is that even based on all of this stuff we're looking at here on the screen, this whole time period and getting there from the top from April 14th is that it's still on track time-wise and would have hit the 50-week moving average on that. And so it gives this ability to just kind of look at it through whatever lens you want to look at, right? If you look at it through the lens of, hey, we touched the 50-week moving average, the RSI on the weekly time frame has reached a certain level. Every time that has happened in the past, which is 4 times, it eventually led to a breakdown and everything was over, game over, it's the end. But if you look at it through the lens of being like, well, we're supposed to kind of wobble around in here. Maybe it's just because we got carried away a little bit too fast rather than taking a more casual approach to get there. And the market needed a whole lot of time to cool itself off, cool the relative strength down to eventually get to exactly where it was supposed to be at, which was the 50-week moving average, a 33% correction. They're happening right on time, and you're right there. And I have to go through the mental gymnastics of that, awaiting to see the resolution of it end up playing out. I find that very difficult for both of them. I really like it when I can just build a massive case on one side and be like, everything is wonderful, all signs are point and go, and coming on here and saying, that's what I see. And I do not care if there's people screaming at me, we're going to go down, if all the signs are pointing, no, we're going to go up. It's all good. I would also be okay with, even though not liking it, be okay with if every sign pointed, hey, we're going down. These are the things that we need to look at because every single sign points down. That's not the case. Not every sign does point that we're going to go down. We're literally right in the thick of the moment of when expansions have taken place in the past. We have altcoins everywhere that have done technical structures that were the completions, that were the very beginning of things to get rampaging on and into an expansion. You got people screaming things are dead, which, of course, I've seen before. And well, it would be right before an expansion takes place. And you can find those things littered everywhere. And of course, not to mention that the dominance, this particular structure, leads to breakdowns, which ultimately would be a big run in the altcoin market, wherever sectors or metrics that gravitates to. This chart would imply it would be an outperformance of the altcoin market in general versus Bitcoin and Ethereum. That typically doesn't happen in downtrends. These types of moves that happen in here have never happened during moves that are downtrends. They happen during expansionary periods. They happen during bull runs. And so I can build this case and show all of these things and show these, and these. And I can come onto the channel and just 100% focus on these and tell you, we're going to the moon. And part of me thinks it will. But there's this stubborn nonsense that's out there that isn't exactly the same. And I sit here scratching my head every day saying, why not? Maybe we're just a couple of days away from it completely resolving itself to where it doesn't matter. And if Bitcoin goes off in here, then we actually still say this time was different. This was the first time that the 50-week moving average acted as a massive catapult to put the market into expansion and didn't break down. And that's the thing that I think about when I'm running through all this stuff and saying, man, this time is different no matter what ends up happening here. If Bitcoin finds support on this and goes into expansion, it'll be the first time ever throughout history, which would be different, where the 50-week moving average was the launch pad to send Bitcoin expanding. That's never happened before, and this time was different. The last 4 times, it all broke down. This is the first time that that's happened. This time was different. And then at the same time, if we actually break down from here and end up plowing through here, obviously, it's the same as what has happened historically for the 50-week moving average, but it was different in the fact that we did it right from the all-time high and that it had never occurred from here before. And that for the first time ever, we will not have an expansion happen in the cryptocurrency market. And I'm not so sure everybody recognizes the gravity of that. And I won't get into all the details of how many things are different here. I'm working on a write-up about that. But to even put it into context of how this time is different as well, is that, as we all know, there's a big message out there that the block reward halving is the catapult and the catalyst that sends Bitcoin off into its raging bull runs. We're now 145 days past the block reward halving. Never before in history during the past block rewards has 145 days elapsed and the price of Bitcoin was still below the price of when the block reward halving took place. This time is different. We have 3 examples to look past on and say, what happened? Well, after 145 days, you were most certainly at a higher price every single time. And right now, it's about 10% below what the price was at the block reward halving. And that's never happened before. And I think what I'm really trying to ramble on into a lot of words is the gravity of this moment in time and where we're at right now. That no matter the outcome of whatever happens right here, this time is different. If the price of Bitcoin uses the 50-week moving average as a springboard to go into expansion, it will, one, not only be the first time that it has done that and used the 50-week moving average to go into expansion, but it will also do it after getting just as weak as it has every single time it has gotten down to the 50-week moving average. If the price rallies from here, it is different from how it's behaved every single time that it has gotten here. If price go up and into expansion, it will be the first time ever to go into expansion like that. If the price breaks down from the 50-week moving average, like it has every past time, it will be the first time Bitcoin doesn't go into an expansionary cycle. So you follow what I'm saying here? No matter the outcome, this time will be different. If it expands like it has through all of history, it will obviously be the same as this, but it will have done it in a manner that has always led to a breakdown the past 4 times. So if we break out, we do it from a way that all of history said we break down from that. And that would be an entirely different outcome of what we've always had. But if we break down, it's an entirely different outcome of what we've always had. And no matter the outcome here, something different will happen. We will forever look at the 50-week moving average and getting down into the 40s of the relative strength as something we can always excuse away because it has now behaved differently. Or we will never be able to look at cycles in the same manner ever again. And I hope I'm putting that into there, the gravity of it all. It is a truly insane time right now. Because no matter what happens, this time will be different. And I think that's one of the difficult things of coming onto this channel and speaking on it, and the responsibility of knowing that tens of thousands of people are going to listen to my voice and listen to what I hear. And I know a lot of times people are hoping that when I come on here, there's some strong conviction on something to happen. And we're in kind of one of these weird moments, and I'm trying to show you exactly what it's like being in my brain of going through the analytical approach of it, of being what happens every time we do this, or what happens every time we do that. And that the reality is of the outcome of this scenario, it will be different from anything that has happened before, but it will also be the same as what has always happened before. If the 50-week moving average breaks down from the relative strength index weakness that we see currently right now, it will behave exactly like it always has. But it would also imply we are going, for the first time ever, not going to have a cycle happen for Bitcoin, and that made this time different. But if we do break out from here, and we get going, then it will be different from every time in the past where we hit that relative strength weakness on the weekly chart and hit the 50-week moving average. And so when I come on here and I truly want to be like, look, this stuff rocks. This stuff is great. I think this stuff is going to rock and roll. I think we've made it through the hardest part of it all, and it's time for things to get moving, and that the good times are just right around the corner. It's what I want to do and come on here. And that's the things that I see happening over here on the charts. And I would love to come on here and be fully committed to that because that's what I see. I see all of this. I'm excited by these things. I'm excited by this because this would imply an amazing time is ahead. But the major conflict of me coming on here, while I see all these things and they make me excited and they make me want to come on here and just say it's on like Donkey Kong, is the conflict that it also requires me to come on here and say, this time is different. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This time is different. And the problem with that is if I take the opposite approach of it as well. If I take the opposite approach and say, nope, we're definitely breaking down. We're done. It's game over. We're going to break through the 50-week moving average. Every time we do this, this is what happens. The conflict with that is also saying that means this time will be different. Or this time will be different, or this time will be different. And the gravity of the situation is that no matter what side it is, this time will be different. This will either not matter for the first time ever, or this will ultimately fail. But having a strong belief of either one requires you to say in your own head, this time is different. If you go full-fledged bull here, you're saying this time is different from all the past times. And if you go full-fledged bear here, you're also saying this time is different and nothing's going to happen in this market this time. And that's the gravity of where we're at until something resolves itself. I'm trying to come on here and be as transparent as I possibly can about it and that massive conflict in there. I want to come on here, man. I want to come on here and be like, yo, hey, all in. But saying I'm all in does require saying this time is different. This will not matter. This doesn't matter this time. And it's hard to know if that's true. It's hard to know if that's true yet or not until something like this would play out. If this played out, right, if it launches off of there and we see expansion, guess what? This time was different. If it breaks down, this time was different. And I think I've said this time is different enough times. I may just title the video that. But I want you to know that I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that this can resolve itself. I'm optimistic that a lot of these charts scream the next move is expansion. I see it everywhere. I'm way more of a chart guy before a fundamental analysis guy. Common saying is trade what you see, not what you think. I see all of this and I'm ridiculously optimistic about it. The issue is with it that no matter what happens here, if Bitcoin uses the 50-week moving average as a springboard, that will be different from all historical behavior ever. And if it breaks down from it, like it has every past time, it will be different from all expansions in the past that Bitcoin did not expand. And that's the corner I'm backed into right now. I see bullishness all over the place, but it requires me to say this time is different. And it doesn't matter that Bitcoin has hit the 50-week moving average with a weekly RSI of 40. But I also see that Bitcoin has hit the 50-week moving average with an RSI of 40. And that would mean everything that I see is not bullish. That massive conflict happening out there means that this time will be different and something is going to have to resolve itself. If this takes off like it does, then it's exactly the same as it has always been. But what we will say from here on out forever is that the 50-week moving average with a 40 weekly RSI does no longer have a 100% hit rate. Because right now it has a 100% success rate. It's 4 for 4. If it launches off of it this time, it would officially be 4 for 5, which has never happened before. And that is the gravity of right now, is that you're betting against something that has had a 100% hit rate 4 for 4. And so we're stuck in kind of this purgatory waiting to kind of get out of it and let an answer come and hit us. And I hope that kind of gave you just kind of an insight into how my mind has been going back and forth with what is happening right now, waiting for something to resolve itself. No matter what choice anybody makes right now, if you are a mega bull, you're betting against something that has had a 100% hit rate so far. Sample size is only 4, but it is 4 out of 4. If you're going to swap and go super mega bear, You're betting that this will be the first time ever throughout history that we will not have any type of expansion in the market. And until something resolves itself, congratulations, if you weren't living in my head with the gravity of the situation of where we're at, now you are. Welcome to my misery. And hopefully these things triumph and the signal actually is coming from all of these things. And that, these resolutions end up being the same as what we've seen. And that all of these things play nicely. But until then, we just wait. And hopefully we have an answer soon, as we've now gotten through unemployment, we've gotten through CPI, and then next Wednesday, of course, we have the first Fed rate cut. So if there's a chance for resolutions to happen, we're obviously living in the thick of it, not only just from timing-wise when it comes to Bitcoin, but when it comes from just pivotal changes of the dynamics of the economy and money flows are all happening right now. So it's a very crazy time. And of course, like we showed, the charts are crazy at the same time too. So we'll keep our eyes on it. And we'll check on it every day like we always do. But all right, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out my newsletter over here on blockchainbacker.substack.com, where we dive into a lot of data. This most recent one's 29 minutes long with my own audio recording in there. So I do personally read all of these to you and go through the charts with them as well. You get access to all the past ones as well, as long as all research data. If you'd like to watch videos to teach you how to set up your own charts and indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro, of course, you could check out my website over here, bcbacker.com. There are links down here in the description of this video to bcbacker.com and to the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video. Please give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.